Oh yeah, episode 16 of the New World Top 5 Fights. As always, if you have an awesome clip that you want to see in the top 5, you can send that to Kristofer at pvpnewworld.com. Now, starting us off today, we have got the one and only Krotha. He is playing Sword and Shield Spear, and this build is a monster. Right away, he jumps on top of the Void Gauntlet player, gets huge damage with the spear, and then sticks on top of him, finishing him off, and then going for the Cyclone at the end. And there's so much self-healing coming out of his build too. What I love about this fight is the enemy players have a healer, and Krotha is just going to sit inside of all this stuff and just tank it out so well. He's alternating between his different sword and board skills to keep his armor buffs up. Then he switches back to the spear, goes for the Cyclone, and the enemy players just kind of camping that heal circle, and Krotha just keeping the pressure on. He goes for the Cyclone again, jumps on top of the enemy player with the skewer. He's got the bleed going, switches to Sword and Shield, and he sticks to him, finishing him off with that final poke. And it looks like the Void Gauntlet player has respawned and come back, and that was the healer that Krotha just took down, so that's going to allow him to put some good pressure into the melee fighter too. And Krotha feeds this guy the Perforate, a massive weaken coming out of that, and then he goes for the Cyclone again, just pulling health out of him, and gets the stagger off the Sword and Shield jump, goes for the partial charged heavy attack for that extra reach to stick on top of him, but the dot actually ends up bringing the player down, and Krotha's going to deliver the beatdown to the last enemy player here. If you guys want to see a build video for this guy, Krotha has it on his channel. There's a link to it down below. And that fight was super long too, so if you guys want to see the rest of that fight, you can find it on his channel too. Jumping right into the next clip, we've got Roxie DFO playing Fire Staff and Rapier, and he opens with excellent damage on the enemy mage, hitting him with the end of the burnout as well, but the healer there just putting so many heals in. Roxie finds himself in a sticky situation. Everybody's back up to full health. He manages to get the riposte just to absorb that incoming damage, gets to the burnout, and I think he's got a little bit of line of sight here, but these guys are still hot on his tail. He goes for a quick roll into the flesh, the evade, trying to break as much distance as he can, and then he turns around and starts feeding more fireballs. Actually, huge damage on the healer there, and Roxie just goes right into the back end of the group with the burnout, just kind of switching the position, still keeping up excellent pressure on that player, finishing him off with the Fire Staff, and then Roxie gets a nice riposte on that player there, downing him as well. Two players on the ground. He's going to drop a couple light attacks to finish them off, and now he's got just the Fire Mage left, and he opens again with that big combo. The Fireball into the pillar gets a great burnout as well, and then he tries to stick on top of him with the Rapier. This guy unfortunately gets into the Ice Tomb, and Roxie's just going to take advantage of that to heal up a little bit, and the enemy player pops out. Roxie connects a big pillar of fire, gets him with the flesh as well. So many dots ticking, and he goes down to the burns. Well played. Moving on to the next fight, we've got Tootlz playing some Greatsword and Spear, and he's hanging out in Outpost Rush. Huge damage with the opening Greatsword combo on the first player there. Then he switches to the Spear, gets him with the Skewer, and lots of damage on that Cyclone, getting a nice big fat heal off of it as well. And Tootlz just trying for the position, I think, here. He actually goes for a little bit of a switch back onto the Hatchet player, and he gets good damage into him. Unfortunately, the Hatchet player able to tank that out. And Tootlz breaks a little bit more distance, trying to get those potions in. Just out of reach from the Sword and Shield. He turns around, misses his first stun, but there's the Cyclone. Big heal from that. And then he goes for the Greatsword. Oh my god, so much reach on the Greatsword. He finishes that guy off, turns around. Big combo damage to absorb the incoming attack with the Grit. And he brings that guy down too, and then he switches to the Spear, lands that stun with the sweep, and then just feeds him the pokes, and oh my god, Spear has got excellent reach, and down he goes. Moving on to the next fight, we've got Danzo playing some Rapier and Ice Gauntlet inside of the arena, playing that new arena, and Danzo is finding himself alone at the top against the enemy bow and rapier player. He gets a great riposte, and he tries to trap with the Ice Shower. Unfortunately, the enemy player just on the other side, and Danzo pops into his Entomb there. I actually like the choice of Entomb. He had 2 dots from the bleed on him from the Tondo, so that actually could have been very deadly for him, but there's a beautiful bait. Oh my god. Gets a huge backstab off of that riposte, and then he sticks on top of this guy, finishing him off with the light attack poke. Didn't even need the flesh. And it looks like Danzo is alone. His two friendly players have gone down. There's the sword and shield player hitting him with the hard stun there. He is freed by the archer who shoots him with the poison shot, and Danzo throws down the ice shower and the snare here from the ice storm, and he gets great damage on top of this spear player. Gets a good riposte. There's the backstab, and Danzo goes for the flesh through. He gets the backstab again for the finish, and he's sitting at 1k health. He's waiting for his potions to come off of cooldown. He just manages to avoid the arrows. And here comes the bow player. He does land the explosive shot there. Goes for the spin with the greatsword. Danzo gets a great riposte again. Goes for that backstab. And he throws down the ice storm, dodging both of the incoming moves from the greatsword player. He dodges the bow shots as well. Traps him in the ice shower and finishes him off with the rapier. Oh my god. What a crazy finish. And finally, guys, for our last clip today, and it is a super long one, we have got the one and only KnightNi playing that legendary sword and shield hammer build, and Knight is in OPR, and this is one of the craziest 1vx's I think I've ever seen. So let's get into it. Right away, you can see Knight is staying on top of the healer, and this is the target I think he has to try to single out here, because the healer is going to keep everybody up, and Knight taking a lot of pressure himself. He lands that stun with the hammer into the shockwave, gets the knockback, and he gets really good damage on the blunderbuss firestaff player, but unfortunately he finds himself in a pretty sticky situation, just holding on to the block at the end there in the doorway. I love how he pivots around the door, keeping his back very hard to get to, and just means that he's going to block so much damage from these guys, and Knight is able to not only absorb the damage, but allow himself to heal up, and Knight gets a great hard stun with the shield, switches to the hammer for the stun chain, and that detonate. Oh my god, he's dealing like 8 or 9k damage in an instant with that combo. The enemy player going down so quickly, and Knight just continuing to keep the pressure up. He switches to the healer. He actually killed that guy while the healer was up. That was basically 100-0. Knight gets a good stun on the healer, switches to the hammer, goes for the chain combo, and then tries to finish him off with the light attack. The healer just hanging on. Knight gets him with the stagger on the sword and shield gap close, and then one little poke to finish him off, and this last guy just leaves. Now, a little bit of time goes by, and Knight just sits in here, and it looks like more enemy players show up, and the greatsword player, I believe that's the same one from earlier, he ends up coming back. Knight gets a great combo on both of them, but this new greatsword sword and shield player that's come into the fight seems very tanky, and the name of the game for Knight is just patience. He's absorbing those attacks, using his sword and shield, keeping up as much pressure as he can with the light attack, actually bringing this guy really close, just sticking on top of him. That snare from the light attack, super deadly. And there's a fantastic combo. I believe this guy just absorbed so much damage because he had his stance up from the sword and shield, and Knight bringing both of them down. And two more players come in here. It looks like they're just gonna teabag their friendly player. Oh my gosh. Just one of those beautiful OPR moments, and it looks like an enemy healer has come into the fight here. He starts poking Knight, and Knight's gonna put some pressure on the healer, just again opening with those light attacks. The big thing is patience with this build, and there you see a fantastic connection. He gets the chain stun, there is the clear out, and then finishes him off with the light attack. And then a little bit more time goes by, and more enemy players come into the outpost here. It looks like a friendly has come into this fight as well. Knight gets a great stun there, and there's the knockback. Another player going down, and he eats the same combo from the enemy player who looks to be running a pretty similar tanky build, but Knight taking very little damage from it. And a Void Gauntlet and Firestaff player comes into the mix. Knight actually getting a great interrupt there with the stun. He does connect with the explosive rune as well, and there's the shockwave. Oh my gosh, Firestaff guy had to roll out of there. He ends up going down, and again, just a little bit more time goes by, and Knight just gets a massive, massive combo. There's a few cuts in this clip, guys, but holy crap, that was a big two players going down as well, and now it's tank versus tank. This is one of those fights, man. Let's see what can happen here. Knight is just kind of jumping around, trolling. This guy is trying to put some pressure in with the hammer, and Knight is just being patient. There we go. He lands the hard stun and then just walks away. Oh, the enemy hammer player just trying to stay on his tail here. And yeah, I think in the tank v tank situation, even with a perfect burst, it would be very hard for these two to kill each other. And Knight right away jumping on top of the squishy as he comes in. There he lands the chain stun into the shockwave, hitting lots of players with it. The knockback as well. Unfortunately, that guy just managing to hang on. And Knight retreats up to the top here, and it looks like there are a lot of red players coming into the outpost. And Knight's just repositioning, seeing if he can lure these guys into a little bit of a tighter spot. The tank jumps on him right away. Knight just absorbing so much damage with that block. And there's the hard stun. 2 players getting stunned by it. And then Knight tries to go for the hammer knockdown there. Unfortunately, the enemy player rolling out of it. But look at how well he just covers himself here. The way that he holds his back, making it very hard for these guys to actually not hit his block. And there is the detonate. Oh my God, that was 3 players with that detonate. 3 players just died to that combo. And again, Knight just holds his position, waits for more players to come, gets a great interrupt on the fire staff players. He goes for the burnout. There's the clear out into the light attack. Oh my God, that stun chain. Another one goes down. And Knight finds himself actually tethered by a Void Gauntlet player here. He just jumps right on top of the Void Gauntlet player, tries to feed him some light attack damage, unfortunately missing the shield rush for the stagger there. And more and more players starting to pile up on him. There's a nice hard stun. Knight goes for the shockwave into the clear out. He's got the detonate as well. And unfortunately, he just timed that a little bit too late. The enemy players managing to dodge before the detonate actually connects. And Knight's just got, I think, 4 or 5 players on him here. 4 players on the ground, another player up top shooting at him, and he is just tanking all of this. Huge stun from the sword and shield there. And then he goes for the clear out into the shockwave. Oh my gosh. They just can't damage him. Knight just being such a wall. And he looks, I think, to want to go after that player in the front there, but he turns around, switches back to the guy who threw that tether on him. And he just hits him with a light attack occasionally, but he's keeping that block up. Ooh, that block did get broken by something. I believe a heavy attack came in there. Knight tries to land this stun combo. Oh, there it is. He's got the shockwave into the clear out and a big detonate as well. Everybody getting dropped to half health. Knight trying to stay on top of this guy with the sword and shield. That cripple coming in so handy. And he manages to connect the last 2 light attacks to finish him off, blocking the incoming attacks from the greatsword player. And then he gets out of there using the sword and shield gap close. And the enemy player's still just right on top of him. Knight is again being patient. There's that stun on the fire staff player as he winds up the burnout into the clear out and the light attack. Another player goes down, and Knight right away jumping on top of the other fire staff player, hits him with a few light attacks. And he turns around seeing the melees behind him here. He does eat that stun. There's the shockwave as well. Another hard stun from the other sword and board player. Knight is just getting tossed around here, but he is so durable. And there he hits his own shield rush. That's going to give him some fortify. And that detonate combo. There's the clear out into the light attacks. Unfortunately, both players actually survive. Knight tries to finish him off with a few light attacks. And here comes the stun chain again. Knight managing to tank it out. He gets that fortify back from the shield rush, and he's got a lot of his skills off cooldown. It looks like, yes, he goes for that hard stun into the knockdown. There's the shockwave, and he's going to go for the clear out. Unfortunately, though, the enemy healer throwing a big heal down on everybody as Knight went for that combo, and he didn't have the detonate, so he's not going to be able to get the kill on those guys. So he turns around again, just keeping his face towards these guys, trying to block as many attacks as possible. And there's that detonate. He manages to get great damage on the one greatsword player there, but he's taken a lot of pressure at this point, and he's got more and more players just slowly piling up on him here. And Knight just goes for a little bit of a kite out to the side here. I think he wants to reposition where maybe he won't get shot so bad by the ranged players, but he is attracting a lot of attention. He's been fighting here for so long. Again, he tries to go for that big stun combo. He finds himself getting caught in the enemy stun combos as well. And more red players just all over here. And Knight does manage to break enough distance and get to the healing circle. And, well, I'm going to let you guys enjoy the rest of this fight as I say goodbye. A huge thank you and a massive shout out to everybody for sending in those clips. If you guys want to check out anybody featured in today's episode, we've got links to them down below. You can see their builds, more gameplay from them, everything. So be sure to check out these awesome content creators. And, of course, if you have a clip that you want to send in for the top 5, you can send that to Kristofer at pvpnewworld.com. If you want to catch me live, there's a link to my Twitch down below for you guys. And of course, you can check out my website, pvpnewworld.com, for tons of written guides to different PvP builds. A big thank you to our sponsor, ExpressVPN, for sponsoring the show. They can help keep you safe on the internet, and you can get a deal on your first purchase thanks to the link down below. And last but not least, a massive thank you to all of my patrons on Patreon for supporting the show. Thank you guys so much. Thank you everybody just for tuning in and watching today. A big thanks again to everybody for sending in those clips. Amazing stuff, guys. And I can't wait to do another top 5 next week. Have a great night, everybody, and I'll see you next time.